All right, everyone, you remember the first transgendered Maine Party candidate for governor, Christine Hallquist, running here in Vermont, probably a doomed candidacy. Can't imagine that Phil Scott is going to lose his position. It's like basically the Vermonters tend to just re-elect the person if they haven't done a shitty job. Phil Scott did drag his heels on weed legalization, but he finally got around to it. He basically stabbed us all in the back on firearms, but the courts will take care of that. Most gun controls being ruled unconstitutional over time. I can't imagine this will be any different. It is a blatantly unconstitutional to try to force someone to be a certain age to buy guns. If they're above 18, the Second Amendment explicitly applies to them. If they can vote, therefore, no problem. But Hallquist is claiming that it's Trump's toxic rhetoric, basically, is causing death threats. I completely disagree. I'll tell you on multiple levels. Number one, this is not the first... Surprise, surprise. Hallquist wants to cast herself as special. I'm transgendered, therefore unique candidate. You're not special. There have been death threats launched against political candidates for time immemorial. Back in the fucking 1800s, you used to have threats of dueling and stuff like that. We literally had a president who killed several people in duels. And you're talking about the toxic atmosphere that we're in. There's no toxic atmosphere. You're being taken in hook, line, and sinker by what a lot of other Democrats, especially on the further left, have been taken in by, which is the feeling that things are toxic because the media told them so. I see no such toxicity myself. Now, I've had death threats against me now for over a decade because I happen to indulge in online activities. I happen to be a persona online. Sometimes that pisses people off because they disagree with me. They don't like my religious views. They don't like my political views. They don't like this, that, and the other. Doesn't require Trump. Hell, the political intimidation in the world today, in the online community, is primarily coming from the corporate media. That is, they're constantly trying to bully and harass and deplatform people who are their fiscal competitors. Insofar as politics goes, there has been far more violence directed at people who are Trump fans by people on the left than in the reverse. It is as clear and plain as day. It's like when people say, well, far-right violence is more prevalent than far-left, insofar as like murders and stuff. Yes, but only if you count certain religious zealot groups as far-right, which unfortunately those statistics are. Because they're like, well, they're traditionalists, they're zealots, therefore they're on the right. Yeah, I think that most people see a discrepancy between, some ISIS member and generically far-right violence. Just saying, I think that there's a little discrepancy. I don't think that the average person on what you would consider the generic far-right, like so-called, Trump far-right or something, I don't think they have that much in common with jihadists, but that's just my opinion. I could be totally wrong. I know that ABC News and CNN and all these groups are just so honest and forthright, and they're so accurate and correct all the time. Like when they all predicted that Hillary Clinton would be our president right now. As far as Hallquist goes, I condemn all death threats, as well as all political intimidation and violence of every kind. It doesn't matter who it's directed against. I don't care if the person's a total fucking commie. I don't care if they make Bernie Sanders look like, far-right individual, like a reactionary or something. They should have the right to speak and shouldn't be intimidated for it. But to blame Trump for this makes no sense. I'll tell you what. Trump is friends with Jenner and doesn't give a shit about these things. He's the first Republican candidate accepting the nomination to actually cheer for a gay man's speech at the RNC's convention. Remember that? Remember how it was a log cabin Republican, delivering like a major speech right before Trump gets on and says, well, I think it's touching that a crowd of Republicans is cheering because that wouldn't have happened a few years ago. Trump is a progressive on social issues. Why is it that people are so delusional? They believe, again, it's an act. They're so delusional that they think Trump is anything other than a Manhattan billion-dollar business Democrat. He is not a social reactionary in any way, shape, or form. He's not homophobic and doesn't give a fuck if you're gay. He does not support putting women back in the kitchen. He's got a convenience marriage, quite obviously. Although I think Melania and he truly have feelings. They're a power couple. It's sort of like the Clintons. The Clintons love each other. They're a power couple, though. At the end of the day, Hillary knows that, look at what Bill Clinton was doing at the funeral there for Aretha Franklin, gawking at people. And then standing next to Louis Farrakhan, but that's a different story entirely. I'll be covering that in a minute. You gotta look at the situation as it really is. Trump is not from a log cabin out in rural Alabama, or, no offense to anyone that is. Demographically speaking, he's a New Yorker. That means that he swears a lot and he's very brash and he's extremely theatrical, which is why he's extremely rich, because he's used to faking people out mentally. But he's not homophobic, he's not racist, he's not sexist. No evidence of any of these claims has ever been offered. Donald Trump insults female, therefore sexist. No, he's insulting people that are constantly deriding him and candidates for political office that he's trying to defeat. That is not sexism. We've fallen as a country when we begin to regard that as sexism. Donald Trump's, existing is considered racist at this point. Name one thing that he has said that is actually racist. And no, I don't mean Islam. I don't mean Mexico. Those aren't races. Something that is actually, has he derided black people and said, well, I hate your culture, you're bad people, I only want white voters. No, Donald Trump wants every voter. He wants to be great. I've told people this when the election was still going on. Trump fundamentally, in my estimation, wants the triple crown of greatness. That is, he wants to be one of the very, very, very small number of people who fits into the following categories. Fantastically wealthy, well, he's had that since the 1980s. Very famous, he's had that basically since the 90s. He was well known before that, but he becomes, it's the 90s, sort of the MTV era, like wrestling and pageantry, and then the rise of The Apprentice and reality TV. He becomes very famous, especially with his Rosie O'Donnell feud in the mid-2000s. I remember that very well. It was very funny. Now he wants political power, and the only thing that an American can grab to be truly at that creme de la creme level is the presidency. The presidency is the creme de la creme. It is the highest position. It wouldn't have, Trump is the sort of person who goes all out. He doesn't gild the bathtub. He encrusts it in gold and diamonds. He doesn't have, basic-ass marble columns. He makes it as gaudy as he can with checkerboard, makes it look like anything you'd see in European nobility. That's what Trump does. It wouldn't have, if he had become governor or the mayor of New York City or something, he would have been like, yeah, this is fun, yeah, mayor of New York City. Wouldn't have been enough. The dude is too ambitious for that. Ultimately, though, in the United States, in a representative system, you have to be popular to truly achieve that political power and greatness. Trump is working to do that. Now, he's focusing on the money, but all of his detractors would rather focus on non-existent racism and how it creates a toxic atmosphere. The media is brainwashing you into thinking that your fellow Americans, if they wear a MAGA hat, go around judging other people based on the color of their skin. It's an extension of the mud deplorables bullshit. It's propaganda. It's not even real. Most of the people that are being called hateful are not hateful. I've been called hateful by BuzzFeed. Oh, yeah, that far-right extremist individual. Go back through all of my videos last decade. Have I ever said anything hateful about a black person? Have I ever hated on women? Have I ever done anything that would be considered bigoted by any sane individual? No. Absolutely not. Condemning religiosity, condemning organized religion is not hateful. It's criticism of an ideology. Saying, well, we need a border wall, that's not hateful. It's not bigoted. Mexican is not a race. It's simply not. It's a national origin. It happens to be a competing economy. Very important. Nobody talks about that fact. Immigration, yes, wanting an immigration system is now racist. 25% of Democrats want to abolish ICE entirely and not have a border. It's not a joke. They took a poll of it. In fact, they took multiple polls. Remember, don't ever believe just one. For Hallquist to say that Donald Trump is responsible for me getting death threats, dude, you'd be getting death threats regardless. Guaranteed, because you're a candidate for a major political office. You also happen to be transgendered. Yeah, there are bigots in the country who think that's a problem. I bet most of them are not from Vermont. Again, Vermonters don't give a fuck. Vermonters are going to look at your fiscal platform and the idea of we're going to have magical socialist land with free health care for all and $15 an hour minimum wage. The fact that you would destroy the economy and drive every actual native-born Vermonter, all the salt of the earth, meat and potatoes Vermonters out of the fucking state and destroy its economy, that's why people don't like you. You're not going to win the election, in all honesty, almost certainly, but it's not going to be because you're transgender. You watch, the Democrats will say, those damn transphobic Vermonters had the opportunity to elect this wonderful, wonderful person, and they won't focus on the actual policy proposals. They'll only focus on the identity politics. They'll write us down probably and say, Vermonters had the chance to be the ultimate progressives and they failed and re-elected big bad Phil Scott, who's basically a liberal. He's a pro-gun control. He's reluctant to sign off on weed. He would have been a civil union Democrat 10 years ago. That's exactly what he would have been. He's a Vermont Republican. He's not fucking walking around in a Klan robe. Oh wait, that was the Democrats too. No, give it a rest with the stupid wedge issues. I'm not going to vote for you just because you're transgendered as though it was some great brave thing you're doing. You're politically empowered. It's not brave at all. It's like when Jenner is like, oh yeah, I'm transitioning. Who cares? You're multimillionaire with $1 billion fucking family backing you and all the political allies in the world. No, brave is some regular person doing that. Especially if they're in an area. They're surrounded by people who actually dislike you if you're transgendered. It's like with the gay marriage debate. People are like, oh, how brave Obama standing up and not defending DOMA. Yes, like he was a big warrior for gay rights. No, he was a civil union sellout. Hillary Clinton wasn't even that. When she was running for the Senate, she was like, nah, marriage is between a man and a woman. How wonderfully progressive you Democrats really are. Wonderful people. No, there are only a handful of Democrats who have actually been socially progressive in anything but name anyway. And then they choose to focus on it as like, you're a bad person if you didn't vote for this candidate because they're black. Or they're females. Shame on you, sexists. You didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. No, I was looking at her policy proposals. What few she ever made. Basically, yeah, fuck Iran, we're going to bomb them. I'm as warmongering as the big boys. I'm not going to lower taxes. That's a bad idea. Fuck you. Then I'm not going to vote for you. I'm certainly not going to vote for you once you start spewing wedge issues over and over. Oh, I'm a woman, hear me roar. You've got to cast your ballot for me because otherwise you're a sexist individual. Hallquist is basically like saying, oh, if you don't vote for me, then you're letting the political intimidation of the far-right transphobes win. No, no. If I cast a ballot for you, I'm a dumbass. Because you want to take a lot more of my money, give me shitty health care I won't even be able to decline, and then drive the cost of living in this state so high that despite the fact that I managed to claw my way from poverty to the upper middle class, I'll be impoverished again. It'll be worthless because the money that we make will be worthless. I'll be down in the lower middle class again. Nationwide, I'll have to move. I will have to leave the state of Vermont. I kind of like my garden. I'd rather just stay put for the moment, but you're going to make it impossible. You're going to make my dream of moving maybe a reality, Hallquist, if you're elected. If you get your way, unfortunately, there's a Democratic supermajority in the House and the Senate here. That's about all. Peace out.